Now we will look at some different kinds of plots, for example, the so-called line plots. We will use the Gapminder dataset for this, which we have to shorten a bit in this case. So you can see that we filter out only 5 of the over 140 countries: Germany, Mexico, Ghana, Japan, and India. With this reduced data set, we then want to plot actually the life expectancy depending on the year. So we have here a time series data. We have different years that go on the x-axis here. We have the life expectancy that goes to the y-axis. And then we want to separate this by country, which we can use, for example, by giving them a different color. So color is country, and then the geom line simply produces a line plot where the data are connected in this time order here. Another example of a plot type is the bar plot. In this case here, we use it on the iris dataset again to plot the average sepal length of each of the species. So first we generate here a small data set using group by and a mutate function in combination to calculate two new columns: the standard deviation of the sepal length and the mean of the sepal length by species. And for a bar plot here, we define x-axis as the species and the y-axis as the average sepal length, and fill it by species. So again, the area is colored here. And then you have these 3 bar plots here, which you can generate by using the geom bar function. Here it's important what the stat argument is. So for stat identity, it will just plot exactly the value that is given here in the dataset, for example, and not some kind of sum or counting. The color here as black means this is the color of the border here. And the position is also important because dodge means that all the bars are next to each other, while stack, for example, would put them on top here. You can also add a bit more information to the bar plot using arrow bars. This would be then a so-called candlestick plot. Again, we have here this little data frame where we calculated the standard deviation and the mean. And we can just use the geom bar and then add a second geom, the geom arrow bar, where you define the minimum and maximum of the y-axis, so the positions here of these arrow bars. And in this case, we will use the average plus and minus the standard deviation. You can set a certain width of this arrow bars, and again the position dodge. Another popular plot type is the heat map. So in this case, you can do this with the geom tile function. So you have 2 categorical variables and an additional numerical variable. So you have here the year and the country as x and y axis, and you fill in the color by using the life expectancy. So you will see here that you get this color legend here. So low life expectancies will be dark purple, and high life expectancies will be yellow in this case. This here also uses additional the geom text, which adds actually here the text, the numbers rounded to 3 decimal numbers in white color, so that you can also directly read the number. And it uses the so-called varieties color scale with the scale fill varieties. So this basically defines which colors are used here. And this scaling of x and y axis with this expand as 0 basically means that you don't have a space between the axis and the axis labels here. So for the heat map, you have to think about actually color scale, so which colors make sense, and also if it makes sense to somehow reorder the factor levels, which may reveal some kind of grouping. For example, of proteins, they may reveal which proteins have a similar pattern and so on. So here in this case, for the year, it looks good because automatically it will be in the alphabetical order, which is by coincidence also the order we want. But for the countries, it may make sense to group them a bit different, for example. But there are also alternatives. For example, I like to use the complex heat map packages for heat maps, which allows you to really have a lot of settings. It's really customizable, and you can also add dendrograms from clustering and so on without any problem. So again, we will have a look at the exercises, which in this case are the exercises 2.8 to 2.11.